Once upon a time, in a land far, far...
No. That's not the kind of story, though.
Oh, right. Hello, everyone. Let's start episode 3. 3.
Sorry, guys, if the high-pitched voice was a little screechy. Moving on. If you guys have watched our previous episode, the episode 2 about Kheer, you know that at the end we actually mentioned that there will be an Akhyan time. If you haven't watched it and you don't know what exactly we're doing here today, close this link and watch that episode first, and then come right back and watch it. So, let's commence. Tao, the mic is over to you. I'll set the stage.
Number 1 on the list. It's 13th century India, precisely the western part of India, Odisha. We have something really, really huge cooking in there. It's the Konark Temple, the famous and monumental and marvelous Konark Temple. But the thing is, it's yet to be built. It's in the making. And you know what? There's another thing in the making, another marvelous monumental thing. A hero in the making, the hero of the story, the superhero, Kheer. The thing was, there was a villain in the story of making of the Konark Temple. That was the sea. Because you see, the Konark Temple had to be built near the sea's anchorage. So laying a foundation of the temple was kind of a villainous task. And even after many attempts by the architects of the temple, it just wasn't done. It just wasn't successful. So then, the son of a chief architect of the temple came up on an idea. And that too while eating. See, all good ideas come when you're eating. So, since he was quite young, he couldn't really express it properly to his father. So he kind of developed the idea of, showing it to him. And you see, he was eating Kheer then. So what he did was, he took a bowl of freshly prepared Kheer and started to make small rice balls with the warm milk. In this way, the child was able to convey his point and help create these two marvelous things, one being the Konark Temple, another a new form of Kheer, Gointa godi Kheer. And this Kheer has become an instantly famous delicacy in Odisha. So there we have it, the superhero of 13th century.
Story number 2. Now, our channel is still Akhyan, so let us dive deeper into the past of Kheer, all the way to the Dwapar Yug. That's right, the time of Shri Krishna. Now, the story goes, there was a king, a very intelligent king, but not a very wise and humble king. Intelligent though? Yes. He ruled over the area that covers the Ambalapuzha temple in, modern day Kerala. One day, Lord Krishna just merrily decided to visit this king. And he did not go very openly. Oh, no. That would be too easy. He discreetly disguised himself as an old sage. Shri Krishna went over to the king's court and challenged him to a game of Chaturangam, which is very like the game of modern day chess that we play. In fact, it's actually considered the ancestors of chess. The king, having pride on his intelligence, of course, accepted this offer and told the old sage that if he lost, he would grant the sage anything the sage desired. Now, Krishna, being, Krishna, said that he wanted the amount of grain that would double as we went on to the next checker. Now, you guys know that we have 64 checkers in the normal checkerboard of chess, right? So quite similar to that, Krishna actually wanted one grain for each checker, but this grain would double as they went to the next checker. So, if there's one at the start, the next one will have 2, next one double, 4, the next one 8, then 16, and so on till they reach the last 64th checkerboard. So you guys can do the math actually and see where that leads you. Continuing with the story. Of course, Sri Krishna won. I mean, that's not really a surprise. And when he wished for the grains, the king was left astonished. He was shocked by the amount of grain that was required to pay up. It was so much that he couldn't even pay up for millions of years. Krishna then revealed his true form. This was obviously a test for the king. And after that, Krishna actually instructed the king to pay him back. But pay him back by distributing free payasam to every single bhakta that approaches his temple. That is why, till this day, the Ambala Puja temple distributes free payasam to every devotee that enters the temple. Let us now begin a fascinating story.
A story of a mother's unconditional love.
A story of testing the eternal bond of family.
A story of finding the peace of mind and soul.
A story of the river of Kheer.
Now the name itself is quite peculiar, isn't it, Arya?
Yes, very peculiar.
Yeah, like scientifically impossible for our minds. A river of Kheer? Nowhere would that be discovered.
Yeah.
Anywhere in the world. But let alone the idea of such a thing is also a fantasy to us. So, like, we're diving into a fantasy story here. But if such a name could be given to a river, then quite an interesting story would be there behind it. So brace yourselves. Yeah, brace yourselves, because this is a long story, but an interesting one. Okay?
Yep.
So it all started with the god of beginnings, Sri Ganesh, and Kartikeya. They were actually competing in a tournament to determine the Pratham Puja deity. And Kartikeya returned after touring the entire world to Kailash.
So, we all know how this story goes, obviously. It's a very favorite and very common story that we hear when we're children.
Yeah, you could say it's a classic.
Yep, it is kind of a classic mythological story.
So back to our Kheer story. When Kartikeya returned to Kailash, he saw that everyone's already celebrating and Ganesh has already been declared the Pratham Puja. He's sitting next to his mother and father. Kartikeya became confused by the result and he fell into this misconception that Shiv and Parvati were favoring his younger brother because maybe Kartikeya was not doing his best, maybe he was not enough. And with this misconception growing in his mind, he started growing more angry and resentful towards himself. Mahadev, observing this, came towards his son and asked him about his problem. What's going on in his mind? Kartikeya, of course, replied that he's been feeling confused and he's feeling resentful. So Mahadev said, why don't you go and self-reflect? Take up tapasya for 11,000 years. And after this, Shiv and Parvati would answer all his concerns.
I feel like every parent should take up this.
Yes.
if the child is not able, is asking like stupid questions or like very deep questions that any teenager or any child would have, just tell them to self-reflect for a while, and if they still don't have any answer, guide them through the answer. That is like the best thing ever for the child.
Yes,
for the
and
parent.
I don't think there's stupid questions. They are questions that are important, because at that age you really don't have much to do but actually reflect on what you're doing.
Exactly.
And if you have that right path with your parents, then of course you're going to be a better person, be a more clearer mind.
Yeah, I mean, by stupid it means that you being yourself, you don't know yourself. That's the only stupidity there. But they're stupidly important.
Yeah, which we later realize. So basically he agrees to it. He says 11,000 years, bring it on. And now he has to go into some cave and do the tapasya. 11,000 years doing nothing but tapasya. No food, nothing. So obviously Mata Parvati, worried about her son, she thought of doing something, helping him a little. But Shiv said not to do anything, not to interfere in his tapasya. But Mata Parvati could not let go of this concern, and in the end decided to create a river of milk for her son just outside the cave, which came to be known as Dudh Ganga.
Now this river, as we know the name is Dudh Ganga, is a river of milk. So now we already have a weird river existing, that is the river of milk. When Shiva, obviously being Mahadev, understood that Mata Parvati had actually created this Dudh Ganga, even though he had warned her, he kind of knew it because he knew that she has motherly instinct that cannot be won over any kind of reasoning. He then explained to her that this river would indeed cause war and chaos in the Kali Yuga, as people would fight over it. Their greed would make them fight over it. Now that the 11,000 years of tapasya had been completed by Kartikeya, he finally realized that it had been his misconception all along. And then he proceeded to greet his parents, to greet his younger brother, and become the king or Senapati of the gods.
Okay, so now Kartikeya's problem has been solved.
Yep.
Quite clearly, quite properly. But now, there's another problem. What would be done with the Dudh Ganga now that Kali Yuga will start?
Well, that's exactly what all the gods, the Devgan, had gathered around Mahadev to ask him. And Mahadev had only one answer. He said that only Parshuram could solve this for us.
Wait, but who's going to go and ask Parshuram? Who's brave enough?
Well, nobody had to be brave enough, because Parshuram was a bhakta, a devotee of Mahadev himself. And so, Mahadev instructed Parshuram to go towards Dudh Ganga. Parshuram reached and decided first to make an offering. We know that Dudh Ganga is a holy and divine river made by Mata Parvati, so Parshuram decided to take a few grains and prepared a kheer out of the milk of Dudh Ganga itself. Then he presented it to Mahadev and Parvati.
Oh my god. So, the first offering that he thought of was kheer.
Yep.
And it's just so simple to make. Just 3 ingredients.
Yes.
The grains that he had, the doodh from the Dudh Ganga, and jaggery, or any kind of sweetness.
Mm-hmm. So then, there is the climax of the story. Suddenly, the pot that contained the kheer was pushed from his hands, and it fell down, flowing away with the river. Parshuram got very furious as he thought that someone had deliberately pushed him, making the pot fall down. He blamed the Devtas for this. But before he could make any rash decisions with his anger, Mahadev stepped in and told him that it was in fact the Doodh Ganga who had pulled this trick on him.
Almost like a little girl.
Parshuram could not believe this. It was a divine river made by Mata Parvati. Why would she do something like this? But then, listening to Mahadev's advice, he recollected his memories through inner meditation and saw that it was actually Doodh Ganga in the form of a little girl, a little naughty girl who had done this. Parshuram then cursed the Doodh Ganga that she would no longer be a river of milk in the Kali Yuga, and only when the Satya Yuga came again would she regain the divine milk. Till then, she must remain as only a religious place.
And thus, she only flows with water but is named Kheer Ganga, as the offering of Kheer that Parshuram had made was destroyed, and only then did Doodh Ganga acquire her curse. Kheer Ganga is actually a river located in the area of Bharsaini, Himachal Pradesh, so it is an actual river. Even today in the waters, we find hints of rubber-like particles that look like malai, which probably inspired the story in the first place. Well, Akhyan time ends here. If you like listening to these stories, please like, share and subscribe to the podcast and let us know in the comments if you want more Akhyan episodes. But please do like and share it with all your family and friends, and make sure to subscribe. There's so many more stories with Kheer being its main character.
But we could never fit them in one episode.
Yeah, we just don't have enough time. There are too many.
So I hope you guys got a gist of our favorite dishes, influential reign in our hearts, from the most ancient to the now.
From the most ancient indeed.
Now that we've learned about something sweet, how about in the next episode we learn about something tangy or spicy or sour maybe?
How about something sweet, spicy and tangy?
Ooh, interesting.
So we will see you in the next week where we share the Purvakhyan of...
ताई, last episode रव्याची खीर खाल्लेली, आज नाचणीची?
Yes, sounds good. It's my favorite anyways. Let's go.
Bye.
Bye. Disclaimer.
Disclaimer. This podcast does not wish to harm any values or opinions of any person or community. This is merely a history podcast to share information.